Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Driven by DCKAP podcast. Really excited today because we have with us the President of Valin Corporation and Vranicic. Valin started in 1974 as a distributor in the semiconductor industry. And today they are a leading distributor of automation, heating, filtration, fluid handling, and process control products. They serve technology, life sciences, energy, transportation, and various other industries. And started with Valin 22 years ago. She started as an intern in 2001, became full-time in 2002. She started in the warehouse, did a lot of different jobs, and today she's the president of the company. Really excited, and it's an honor to be chatting with you, Anne. Welcome to Driven by DCKAP podcast.
Thank you, Karthik. I appreciate the time and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Anne. And I'm just curious to know, how did you get hired at Valin? Can you tell us the early story? You started in 2001 and you started as an intern, and then a lot of people start as interns and then sometimes they go join another company and sometimes they get hired at the same company, but you got hired at Valin. Can you tell us your initial years at Valin? How did you get hired?
Oh, well, I was in college and I went to Valin and interned for the marketing director at that time. And most of my work I was doing was helping her build some content, write some newsletter information, and then do some data cleanup work. And I did that for one summer, and then I came back again and worked for her over kind of a Christmas break period, which was fun. I enjoyed it, but I was living actually in North Carolina, and I had gone out to California, that's where Valin is, to do the internship. And I actually had no intention of moving to California, and I didn't even think there was an option to work at Valin, to be quite honest. But, life events happen, and I was honored when the director of marketing went to Joe Nedemeyer, the president, and asked if she could bring me on after I graduated college. And they came to me, and at first I said, no, I'm going to stay out here on the East Coast. And like I said, life events happened and decision changed, and I decided to come out, and I said, I'll give you 1 year and then I'm moving back east. And so they said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to put you in the warehouse. I said, fine. That actually sounds kind of interesting to me, learning about kind of that pick, pack, and ship and how the roots of distribution work. And I started doing that and thought that was interesting, and then got some exposure into customer service and purchasing. I learned a bit about operations, and I ended up staying at Valin. And throughout that time, I was very fortunate to be able to participate with many teams and projects, and just kind of move my way around till today, I guess you can say.
Oh, very interesting. And you started around 2001, 2002, and that was the dot-com bust. And when you started with them, Valin was making about $75 million in revenue, and then the revenues plummeted to $25 million. So it's pretty much like kind of starting from scratch. Can you tell us about that time period? I mean, I also graduated around the same time. I finished college around the same time, so I could really relate to that. But what were some of your learnings working at Valin? Because I'm sure that hard period taught you a lot. What were some of the learnings in the company around that period?
Well, I think the biggest learning was when you see trouble like that, it's amazing to see the team effort that goes into working hard to try to correct and counter the efforts. I mean, with that time period, I know our CEO and president took out personal loans to keep the business afloat and keep payroll going. We had employees voluntarily take some pay cuts just to keep the business going. It was a really, really tough time. And we really came together. And there was a core group that just put their heads down and said, we're going to go out and get sales. We're going to cut our costs, and we're going to get through this. As we worked through all of that, Joe, our president at that time, said, we will not go through this again, and we're going to begin our diversification efforts into other industries. And that really put us on a trajectory of an acquisition spree. And we've acquired 47 companies over the last 20 years. And that really diversified our business. In 2001, we were roughly, I would say 75 to 80% focused into the semiconductor market. And today we're split 50-50 between semiconductor and industrial. So it really gave us a lot of balance. It gave us a lot of growth opportunities. We can really manage the business a lot better during the cyclical periods of the ups and downs between semi and the industrial markets. And it's given us a lot more leeway to be able to invest in the company and to continue going after our growth initiatives. So we've really put a lot of effort into that, and we're continuing to diversify the business within our core markets of semiconductor and industrial. And when I look at industrial, I really focus in on the energy market, health sciences, and then there's the rest of kind of the general industrial market, which is a lot of manufacturing, wastewater, pulp and paper, and some of those other heavier industrial industries.
No, very interesting. I mean, during these tough times, you really learn a lot as a leader. And I could also relate to what you said, because even at DCKAP, not in 2002, I mean, we didn't even have a company then. We started in 2005. But around 2012, 2013, we ran into a lot of financial trouble and we had a big payroll to meet. But you really learn a lot during that time period in terms of, hey, the things you do well or things you don't do well, where should you focus? Yeah, so it's really interesting that you guys diversified and not really focus on one industry. Yeah, that's actually a great lesson for anybody listening. Just talking about the different roles you did at Valin, one of your key initiatives has been leading the digital transformation efforts at Valin. And we are very thankful and to be partnering with Valin on your digital transformation journey. Tell us about your digital transformation journey at Valin, and what efforts are you guys taking right now, and how is it changing your business model?
Yeah, no, we've always been very on the forefront of wanting to look at where technology is going, where is industry going, where are the customers going, and how do we meet the customer at where they want to be. There's a joke in a story of back in, I think it was 1979, 1980, roughly, Valin got its first Mac computer. And at that time, the founders of the business said, I guess everybody was around it looking at it. And the founder said, well, I don't know what we're going to do with this, but someone's going to figure it out. So it's kind of a joke around kind of our philosophy. We don't always know what we're going to do with some of the things, but we have some really smart people that we're going to find out and how we're going to test it and try it and either scale it or kill it. So we've always kind of taken that philosophy. We launched our first e-commerce site in 1998. It was, it was a very homegrown site, but it was very forward-looking because most B2B companies didn't have e-commerce. People weren't really thinking about that. And we had a lot of suppliers and that said, why are you wasting your money? Put more feet on the street, But it's that foresight that said, well, it's going in this direction, so we need to start preparing. So we really try to we build a lot of effort into trying to build foresight into our business and across our VPs and the rest of the organization, so we can determine what do we need to do next so that we're not behind the scale. We started in 2006, 2007, really focusing on our back-end ERP system. And what I mean by that is we decided, okay, we really need to build this thing out so that it's a useful tool, not only for operations, but across the rest of the business. And so we started doing some major data normalization within our systems because we wanted to build out a reporting. We wanted to build in strategic pricing. We wanted to use the software as a tool to make better business decisions and make them faster. And so our focus for the first, I would say from 2006 to 2010, was a lot of just data normalization in our systems. So that data could feed our e-commerce, could feed our websites, could feed our CRM system, et cetera. And then from 2010 till probably about 2018, the biggest focus for us was our back-end technology stack, that infrastructure. And we really took a hard look at how do we build out an ecosystem that can become a 360 communications tool across our organization, and then be able to take that data and that information and feed it to our customers and suppliers. So that became a big focus, and we did bring in outside help to help us build that strategic vision and a 5-year plan. We were really fortunate to be able to hire back, actually, Chris Tucker, who is our VP of IT today. And he really drove that vision and drove the teams to be able to implement the plan. And that was extremely beneficial to the company, because in 2020, when COVID hit, everybody was able to pick up their laptop, go home, and we were still able to communicate. I remember beforehand, we would rack our heads on, how are we going to get people to use Teams? How are we going to get people to use these tools that we put in? And then it was just, well, you have to. So in a sense, COVID stunk. It was terrible, but it was a huge force into change management on utilizing the technology that we invested in, and to be able to continue to operate seamlessly. So that was a huge focus for us for that period of time. Today, and over the last couple of years, what we've done is although we're still continuing to improve our back-end operations and technology stack, and adding a lot of automation to our processes to improve those and make them faster, quicker answers to customers, we're starting to turn, or we have turned, to more of the technology stack that's on the revenue generating side. So I look at it in two ways. I look at technology for cost efficiencies, and I look at technology for revenue generation. So the revenue generation is more on the front end of the business. And that's where our big focus is right now, on connecting our sales and marketing to our inside sales, customer service, to our go-to channels outside. So any of our SEO, our marketing campaigns, our e-commerce, our website, and then pulling that through to be able to capture new revenue and through those types of channels. So that is a big push for us. A lot of it, that's where the AI talk comes in. That's where the chatbots come in, a lot of the recommendations. I believe that is the new wave of where we need to go to continue to build the business and stay afront of the trends and the way that customers and buyers are looking for answers and information. I'll stop there, but
no, I think it's very interesting. You walked us through the 20-year journey of the digital transformation at Valin. And at different periods in the company, you focus on different things. Like you rightly said, sometimes, I'm just going to focus on data. Let's get that right first. And then you focus on the back end. And then now you focus on the front end and making sure the systems talk to each other. You guys are definitely ahead of the game when it comes to other distributors out there in terms of marketing or digital transformation and all that. What advice would you give to other distributors out there who are looking to do something similar to what Valin did?
I would say that if you want to get ahead, the first thing you have to focus on is your data. Crap in, crap out is kind of the mantra, right? But good information in, good information out. If you can start with the basics, then you can build upon that. You have to build your foundation. The biggest change that we see is across the sales efforts right now. And to be able to scale, I believe you have to start changing the roles and the expectations of those roles, because you can't automate if one person is holding the keys to everything. So one of the things that we did was on the sales side is we took a look at how we're managing our accounts, our customers. And rather than have one salesperson do everything from cradle to grave, we mapped out all of the tasks that they're doing, and we started building teams around core customers. And we took the tasks and we said, all right, on the inside sales, customer service, this is what you're going to be managing and front facing with the customer. And outside sales, these are the tasks and responsibilities and expectations that you have with front facing with the customers. Essentially, what we were trying to do is to break out tasks and then build processes around those, either to automate, to increase our communication, the speed of communication to the customers and meet their expectations, and also free up time for our sales team to go after new growth initiatives, because that is very important. If all they're doing is retaining business, then we're not going to be able to scale. So trying to free up those resources to go after new specifications, new growth initiatives, do some business development, et cetera. So those are the things that we're focused on right now, is how do we look at our business? How do we meet the needs of our customers? How do we take those? How do we break up the tasks that need to go into serving our customers? And what do we need to do to automate, to help our teams internally to be able to communicate? And then how do we help free up time for our outside sales to be able to go after new growth initiatives? But like I said, to go after your whatever the data is in your system, and then start looking at your processes and your people, and then apply technology last. Don't start with the technology is my biggest advice.
I think that's great advice. I mean, I always think technology is just an enabler. It just helps you do things faster and better, but you have to get the basics right. Well said, Anne. And a company constantly needs to keep reinventing itself to stay ahead of the game. Not just the company, even as a leader, one needs to constantly keep reinventing themselves. So you have reinvented yourself many times in your career. How do you keep reinventing yourself, or how do you do that? How do you keep abreast with what's happening around you?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things. Honestly, I believe some of the best ideas come from the people that are working at the company. A lot of leaders, I feel, take an approach where they constantly go on the outside and look for advice. But consultants and everything, although they can give you some very good information and perspective, really the people that you're working with know what's going on. They're talking to the customer. They understand your systems. They understand the process. They see the friction that's going on, and they typically have some really, really great ideas. One of the things that I've been very focused on for the last year since I've taken on this position is getting out and meeting with the team, talking with the people I work with at Valin, and as well as talking to a lot of our suppliers, visiting customers, just trying to understand how their businesses are shifting, where things are going, and how that translates to how Valin is interacting with them, whether it be, like I said, our supplier or a customer. And really those things it's a lot of little things that typically just add up to some big transformation. I don't believe transformation is a huge thing. It's a lot of little things that just add up over time. And it's not something that is going to be told to us by, like I said, some big outside consulting firm or anything like that. It's how we're managing the business and how we're going after new growth opportunities and how we're serving our current customer base. You can find a lot of innovative things to do if you just listen to your people, listen to your customers, and listen to your suppliers, and then just pay attention to the market dynamics going on so that you can prioritize your investments to be able to maximize the efforts of the team and maximize the dollars that you want to put into any of the technology or processes that you're trying to improve.
Yeah, as someone once said, you have 2 ears and 1 tongue, so listen more. So yeah, so it's really cool. And yeah, you listened, and you became president of the company in 2023, last year. Did you expect that you were going to be the president of the company one day, or how did that happen? And who told you you're going to be the president?
No, I actually did not expect it. And to be quite honest, I never asked for it or never thought that it would be something I would actually really want to do. It's an honor. It's an honor to serve the people at Valin. I've been working with them for, 22 years, almost 23 years now. And many of them are very long-term employees. We just had our longest serving employee retire in February. He was with the company for 46 years. We have several other employees that have been with the company 40 plus years. And it's a real testament to the company and the longevity of the people and the commitment that they've given over their careers and lifespan to build up the business. And that is one of the things that I really want to keep moving forward is that building mentality, that we're not finished. I think it keeps things very interesting. It's some people like to build, some people don't like to build, but there's a lot of opportunity when you're looking at how do we continue to evolve to meet the market demands, to counter cyclical market dynamics and changes. And we have to be agile to be able to do that. And I think when you engage people and then continue to engage the people that work for Valin, they become a part of that. And we see that when you see the longevity of an employee. And we really appreciate all of the efforts that they put in. We recognize those continuously. They are the heartbeat of Valin, and I want to continue that culture. And it's a tough job. It is very tough, but it's very rewarding when you see other people step up and say, "Hey, I can help. I can do this. I want to participate." And you're like, "Wow, okay, maybe we're on the right track."
Oh, very nice. You get a lot of help. But when did you first know that you were going to become the president? And how was it like when you were told that, hey, Anne's going to be the new president now?
Yeah, we started the discussions probably about 3 months prior to the announcement. We were actually going through a very big transition. Like I said, Valin's acquired roughly 47 companies. Well, last year we were acquired by Graybar Electric, which is a very large electrical distribution in the United States. And with that transition was the succession planning of putting up a new executive team. And with that executive team, the VPs and my team that I get to work with day in, day out, we had been working through those roles for probably about 2 years prior. And with that, I was asked if I would be interested in stepping up and taking over. And at first I said I'd need to think about it. Because that's a lot. I have a family, and my husband and I both work, and we needed to decide if this was something that we could manage personally and how we would do that. And came home, we had lots of discussions, and ultimately came down and said, you know what? I really want to be able to serve the people at Valin as much in this capacity, and we're going to make it happen. And so with that, and the transition with Valin was when I took this role, and now we're just moving. There's no rest.
Very interesting. You talked about Graybar's acquisition of Valin, but Valin has acquired 47 companies, and now you have been acquired by Graybar. So tell us about what goes into a decision-making process like that, and what does this mean for the future of Valin?
Yeah, well, Valin was 100% employee-owned company. And one of the big things with our former president, who is our CEO, Joe Nettemeyer, was to make sure that whatever happened, we would be joined up with another company that was either employee-owned or very focused on taking care of their employees. There's a lot of consolidation going on in the industry. And with our culture, he really wanted to ensure that we were going to match up with another company with a similar culture and mindset and growth-oriented. And Graybar just happened to fit that profile, I guess. And so the conversation started between Joe and Graybar's president and CEO, Kathy Mazzarella, and then it just naturally went down the path. Graybar has been very focused on diversifying their business into the industrial automation space. And Valin is strong within that portfolio. And so it really met Graybar's criteria within their diversification strategy. And so we've been very fortunate to be able to be acquired by Graybar, where, like I said, there's a lot of acquisitions going on. There's a lot of changes in the marketplace. And although Valin's been on a great growth trajectory, we recognize being a mid-sized distributor, to be able to get to the next level, you do need the support of essentially kind of deeper pockets and other companies that are able to continue to invest because it's getting more expensive. It's getting more competitive. There's a lot of large companies that are coming into this mid-space distribution industry. And so the competition is getting pretty fierce. And so you need to be able to have the backing and the support to continue to scale the business going forward. And all of that criteria is matches very well with Graybar's vision with growth and where they want to go. Valin is jumping right in, and we've gotten a lot of support from Graybar to be able to do quite a bit that we haven't been able to do in the past. And we're really excited for the opportunities that they're providing us, and we don't want to let them down, obviously. So we're going to continue to push the envelope, not only with technology, but growing our revenue and our position within our marketplaces of semi-energy and health science and industrial.
Yeah, thanks. And you talked about the different changes that are happening in the industry and a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in distribution. But then there are still a lot of small companies out there, a lot of family-owned businesses that are trying to compete. So if you're a small business out there in this current landscape, what strategy would you take to compete with some of the bigger players?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely find your niche. I think, when most people think of distribution, they think of the big box distributors, the ones that are selling a lot of the commodity items, box in, box out, a lot of the e-commerce, big companies. But that's not all of distribution. There's a lot of distribution that is very focused on specific needs within specific industries, within manufacturing. Nothing is all box in, box out. I was learning the other day of how in some of the health science areas of how they go about building proof of concepts for new medical equipment. And it's just fascinating to hear their needs, because it's not that they need a widget from this site or a widget from that site, but they're looking for partners on how do I take different components from the industrial automation world to be able to build new equipment. And when you get into something like that, you need engineering skills, you need problem solvers, you need people that can think outside of just what's going in the warehouse and what's going out of the warehouse. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there to be able to carve a niche for your business. But that takes listening to the customer, obviously. And I think a lot of those family-owned businesses know this already and are doing it, and that's what's made them successful. The tough part is you get to a point where it gets tough to scale. And then that's where you have to start thinking, what's the next thing? How do I continue? What do I need to do to reinvent and move to the next level of business? And that's tough. And I don't have really an answer for that. That's kind of an individual thing. But I think everybody knows that if you really want to be successful with a family business, find that niche and build around that. Find those strengths and build around those strengths. I have this philosophy, you can either invest time into areas where you're good at to become great, or you're investing time into things that you're not so good at to become average. Well, I don't want to be average. I'd rather focus on the things we're good at and figure out how we're going to be great at it. And if you can do that, you're going to build a recipe that can build success within your own life and within your business.
No, definitely, right? So don't spread too thin, be really great and get at what you do, and then work on expanding to other areas and try new things, experiment. Yeah, and you also talked about Valin being employee owned. You guys are 100% employee owned. So what are the pros and cons of being an employee owned company?
Well, yes, like I said earlier, we were 100% ESOP company, employee-owned company. With the acquisition of Graybar, we're actually now falling under their employee ownership structure, which is different than Valin's, but it's still very good. The pros of being employee-owned is that you get an ownership culture. The employees get the benefit of when we perform well, and they get the not so benefit when we don't perform well. But with that, like I said, you get a lot of engagement within the employee base because they want to see the company do well because it benefits them. Now, the cons of it is that, I don't think there are many cons. I can't think of any, to be quite honest. People want to participate into something that they have a purpose for. And having a business that you have an investment in, you have a purpose for it. You're not just in there day in, down, inbox to outbox, inbox to outbox. You have an invested relationship with the business. And I believe that is a great way to treat your employees. And that is one of the biggest reasons, like I said earlier, that Gray Bar was such a great match for Valin, because it brings the same culture and same mindset to the business. And we want to continue to be able to offer our employees those types of benefits.
No, thank you so much for answering this, because I was always curious, right? Are there any cons, with ESOPs and being an employee-owned company? So yeah, I think that's a great answer. So thank you. And talking about Valin and your career, and also as a women leader, when we were chatting last time, one thing I thought was really inspiring was, at one point in your career, you even considered quitting Valin and to take care of your kids, but then you decided to hang on, and now you're the president of the company. So tell us, what went through that decision-making process and how the flexibility which Valin offered you helped you stay at the company.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was that was actually quite a tough time. I'll be honest. I was working on my master's. I was working full time. My husband just started a business, and oops, we got pregnant with our first child. And so it was financially for both of us, it was very, very tight. I needed to continue to work just to keep our health benefits, and I was going to night school. And at the first year of my son's life was, I felt I missed quite a bit. And when I got pregnant with our second child, I really had to sit down and get my priorities straight. And after coming off of maternity leave and going back to work for a little bit, my husband said, okay, I think we'll be okay if you want to take some time off and then just focus on the kids in school and to finish my master's. And I said, okay, I think that's what I need to do just to keep my sanity and and I want to be part of my kid's life. And so I did go in and I talked to our VP of Human Resources, and I said, I'm going to submit my resignation. I said, I need to be home and I want to finish school. And she said, well, did you ever consider maybe taking a little bit of a step back and just helping part-time for a while? And I honestly didn't even think that was an option, nor did I even consider it. Industrial distribution is a it's traditionally just been, mostly men, which is fine. And so I just didn't think it was something that would be considered. I think I was Valin's second person to ever go out on maternity leave at that time. But I said, you know what do I have to lose? I'll try it. If I don't like it and it's not working out, then I'll go back to my original plan and take some time off. But it ended up working. And I was extremely, extremely appreciative to the support of not only the foresight of our VP of HR, but just the management team at that time, recognizing that there's at times in people's lives where you have to give more in one area than another area. And being able to work with me to be able to prioritize and manage my time. And with that, I really was compelled to show my loyalty to Valin as well. And so I worked for part-time. I finished school, finished my master's, and had a third child. And I was able to, I would say I was working part-time, but I probably wasn't working part-time because it was a lot. It was more than part-time. And then just over the years, as the kids started school and started doing, I added more and more hours until I was fully back full-time again. So, it was a time of growth for me. And it really helped me put in perspective what's important. And I appreciated the support. And I see that with the employees at Valin and other people as well, there's times in our lives where events happen and you need to reprioritize your time and your focus. And if you're somebody who is a contributor and looking to good, I'm willing to work with you because it doesn't last forever. Everything is in chunks. Nothing is forever. So you may have to pull back in one area and give a lot more in one area, and then it changes over time, and you can give in another area and pull back in another area of your life. So it's always a give and pull. And I think it's important to work with the people you work with to recognize those and help them prioritize their time. So that's important. And I feel very loyal to the company for that support they gave me at that time of my life.
No, I think that's really, really interesting. And I took that from our last conversation and last chat. I really loved what you said. And in fact, I shared it with our team as well, because not all days are the same in somebody's life, or not all months are the same. Sometimes, like you said, all of us deal with different priorities. We might have sick parents we need to attend to, or something else is going on in our life which we need to attend to. And the company does need to offer that flexibility. I really took that from you in our last chat. And I just want to say a big thank you for sharing that. I really love it, because I think that really hit me hard, because sometimes, right, you would see an employee who's working so well, and then there could be something that they're not doing right. And we might get upset, hey, you're not doing a good job, but then there could be something else going on. So it's always good to be empathetic and understand what's going on. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all people. Nobody's perfect, and we're all dealing with things in one capacity or another. And I think as a leader, if you don't recognize that, you run the risk of losing a lot of good people in your business. And I don't want to see that at all. And treat people fairly, and they'll treat you well back. And so I think that's a very important philosophy to live by.
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone you are particularly inspired by, or what do you find inspiring in a leader, and who are your mentors?
Oh, goodness. I feel like people come in and out of your life at certain times for a certain reason. And over the years, I've had many different mentors. It amazes me, when you're going through different periods, whether you're going through a growth period, you're going through, a period where things don't seem to be going right at all. People come into your life at a certain moment to give you advice or guide you. And it always amazes me when I see that. There was a gentleman many years ago, and he was the one that really encouraged me to go back and get my master's. And he said, knowledge is something that nobody can ever take away from you. Continue to pursue education and learning. And that always resonated well with me. I've had coworkers that I've worked with that have given me advice. I had one of my coworkers I've worked with a few years ago, and said for several years, and he told me to the side, he said, never say that you don't have anything offered. He's like, you're smart. He goes, you can do this. And, just words of encouragement like that are very inspiring. And then looking at just other people that have persevered over hardships and still put others first. Those are the people that inspire me. And, my parents are big contributors to that. My dad has always been a servant leader. He really focuses on how he can help others. He holds people accountable. He's not always a soft person, if I can say that. He has high expectations, and he will hold you to them, but it really helps you grow. And I think that's very important today. I think a lot of people come in thinking that I know everything and I'm entitled to this. And, you can go get a college degree, a master's degree, whatever it is, learn all sorts of cool concepts. But once you get into it and you start building the experience, and the more you learn, you realize you don't know a lot. So you better start not relying just on yourself and start reaching out to others to help you along the way. And I think that's important. I think you need to continue to treat people well. And leaders that do that, I think, inspire others to rise up. to the new challenges. And I think that's, like I said, important for the young people coming into any business. Realize that you don't need to know all the answers. Continue to educate yourself. Seek answers from others. Don't act like you know it all. Rely on the other people who have strengths that complement your weaknesses. And when you can do something like that, you can really make change. And that's important because the world, that's the only thing you can count on in this world is change, change to happen.
No, totally. And never have a sense of entitlement, like you just said. You're involved in a lot of women groups like the Society of Women in Industrial Distribution. It really reflects your dedication into empowering more women into distribution. Could you share any impactful initiatives or strategies that are working to encourage more women to pursue their careers in distribution?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was doing anything big or strategic. And most of my work that I do is speaking with other young women. I have mentors. I think I have two mentees right now, but I've been a mentor for several years to many different young women looking to go into industrial distribution. And a lot of our conversations really do surround, how do you manage life and work, and what are your recommendations on how to communicate and balance? And it really, women, I feel they want to give their best, but they also want, professionally, but they also want a personal life. I mean, all of us, whether you're a man or a woman, you're trying to figure out how can I be impactful, but also enjoy my life, and how do you balance that? And finding that purpose is not always an easy thing. And it takes a lot of self-reflection on, well, what's important to you? Because like I said earlier in my comment, there was a time in my life where my family is, and it is still today, my family is my priority. It is my priority, my husband, my children. And so after that is how I wrap the rest of my work around it. And if I have to, work late at night after everyone's sleeping or early in the morning when everyone's sleeping, I do that quite a bit. But it's my big advice to the young people, not only women, but the young people coming into the business world, is continually reflect on where your priorities are, and then how are you going to wrap everything else around that? And what you will find a lot of purpose in what you do. And like I said, my family's my number one, but then again, serving others and helping others succeed is my number two. And that's why I work so hard between balancing my personal life and work life, because I find it rewarding. Serving others is what is very rewarding to me. And so that's how I prioritize and manage my time.
Yeah,
I don't know if that helps too much, but
no, it did. It did. Life-work balance, as you call it, and serve others and have a purpose. Yeah, I mean, we have come to the end of the podcast, and a few last ending questions. On this podcast, we talk to a lot of leaders, and one thing we ask them is, what is a question you would like to ask the next leader we interview? And the last leader we interviewed was Scott Sinning. He is the president of Pricing for Distributors. He used to work for Graybar. He worked for them for over 30 years. And the question he asked is, there's a generational shift in distribution with the aging workforce and the pending retirements of so many. As a leader, what are you doing to inspire the next generation of leadership to be as driven as you are in the distribution industry?
That's a loaded question. It's a good one. But yeah, it is interesting to watch the huge dynamic shift going on. And we call it the gray tsunami. And by 2030, I believe, will be the last of the baby boomers that have exited the market. And so, yes, there is a lot of knowledge and skill and expertise that's leaving the marketplace right now. And with that, it doesn't just, a lot of people will be like, oh man, it just affects our business. It's affecting the entire economy. And but with that, it's a little scary at times, because there's, like I said, a lot of knowledge leaving, but there's a lot of opportunity that's opening up. And for those that want to engage and want to learn and figure out how to become good at something, there's a lot of the older generation, I should say, the baby boomers, that really want to teach and mentor those young people. And I see it at Valin. I see a lot of our young people really starting to attach on to the more seasoned employees that probably will be retiring in a couple years, and they're trying to learn as much as they can from them. There's a lot of opportunity. And if you can recognize the value of that knowledge and that expertise and take the time to dig in, listen, and learn, you're going to put yourself above and ahead of others that are just trying to figure it out through a book. So I feel right now, while we still have the time, it's extremely important to work and learn from the knowledge that, like I said, is going to be retiring in a couple of years. And I think that's very motivating because, like I said, education opens up opportunity, and there's a lot of learning that can be still done. And go get it. Go get it. Become the next expert.
Yeah, keep learning. Yeah, well said, Anne. So now it's your turn to ask a question. So what question would you like to ask the next leader we interview?
I think one of the biggest shifts that I'm seeing is going from a individual seller to more of a team sales approach. And I'm interested in understanding how other companies are looking at how they're positioning their sales, marketing, customer service teams to work together to grow their sales efforts, because that's a big thing for us, is team selling. And I'm always curious of how others are building those teams to be able to interface with customers to get scale and growth.
No, I really like that question because it's just not about the salesperson, but it's about the team. And people are not just buying the salesperson, they're buying the team, they're buying the company. Yeah, thank you, Anne. And I would like to end with this question. What book are you reading right now?
Oh, man, I think I have like 3 of them right now. But the business book I'm reading right now was actually recommended to me by Susan Conti. I've been very honored to be able to start working with a leadership coach, and she recommended the book called Radical Candor, and I'm almost finished with it. I think I have about a chapter left, but it's an interesting book on having conversations with people and how to set expectations and how to communicate that's positive but motivating, but sets expectations on holding people accountable to what they say. So it's a good book. It's interesting. It's all about communication. I feel like that's the reason why we all have jobs is just to communicate.
No, Radical Candor is really, really interesting. So Ray Dalio talks about it a lot, and also Reed Hastings in his book. I think another book you should probably check out on Radical Candor is No Rules. Reed Hastings, I think that's a great book as well. So yeah, I mean, I practice Radical Candor as well. So I mean, it's really interesting.
Good. I'm on the right track. If a smart person like you is reading that, I'm in. Good.
Yeah, I'm not sure about being smart, but I mean, the book I'm reading right now is The Essentialism. This is by Greg McKeown. So it's a great book as well. You don't really need a lot of things. You keep subtracting, keep eliminating. I just completed reading that book. So yeah, that was a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big organization person. So I have a rule. If you bring something into your house, you have to take something out of it.
I love that, actually. I mean, and I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much. You have a very inspiring journey. I mean, I got inspired. In fact, like I said, I also shared some of our learnings in our little chat we had in prep to this conversation with our team. I really learned a lot. Thank you so much for this great conversation. Thank you for joining Driven by DCKAP podcast.
Thank you, Karthik. It was so nice to chat with you today. You guys have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Driven podcast. Check out our other episodes for more and subscribe to be the first to access every new episode.